Okay, welcome everyone. I suppose I should start sharing my screen too. So I've got a few things on here, and let's see. What's really cool about this is I might be able to tell all by myself if I am in presentation mode. I'm going to say, got it there. Okay, looks good. Okay, so you probably all know my name's Sally Snyder. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm with the Diversity Programming Board here at Rogue Community College. And also joining us today, or if they're here in person or working behind the scenes, we have Reverend Ernestine Flemister of St. Luke's Episcopal Church. And Tom Berry, I did see you. Reverend Tom is also in the house, Bethany Presbyterian Church. Reverend Ryan Scott from Newman United Methodist is unable to join us today. But I did see Jenny Jackson, RCC adjunct faculty in the house. So welcome everyone. Our mission is to enrich, support, and celebrate our diverse community by acting as a catalyst for inclusion, continuous learning, understanding, and acceptance through active engagement and facilitation of educational opportunities that challenge biases and deepen conversations. That's really odd. It's like not where I thought it would be. Huh. I don't know what just happened. We'll deal with that later. So I have David West sitting next to me in the screen right over here. And he's an enrolled member and elder of Citizen Potawatomi Nation. He is an RCC alum and also director emeritus of the Native American programs at Southern Oregon University, and also director of the Conaway Nicotilicum Summer Native Youth Academy, which is back in person again after the thing that happened. And he's holding the book. One of many, but this one is highly recommended, Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. And so next I'm going to stop screen sharing, and David is going to read our land acknowledgement for us. If my keyboard will, there we go. Okay.
All right. In our desire for collective healing and partnership, we offer this acknowledgement of Indigenous peoples and their connections to the land that Rogue Community College occupies. This acknowledgement was developed in conversation between Grand Ronde tribal staff, Siletz tribal staff, and Native American programs faculty and staff at Southern Oregon University. It continues to be a living statement through this ongoing partnership. On behalf of Rogue Community College, I would like to take this moment to acknowledge that Rogue Community College is located within the ancestral homelands of the Shasta, Takilma, and Latgawa peoples who lived here since time immemorial. These tribes were displaced during rapid Euro-American colonization, the gold rush, and armed conflict between 1851 and 1856. In the 1850s, discovery of gold and settlement brought thousands of Euro-Americans to their lands, leading to warfare, epidemics, starvation, and villages being burned. In 1853, the first of several treaties were signed, confederating these tribes and others together, who would then be referred to as the Rogue River Tribe. These treaties ceded most of their lands to the United States, and in return, they were guaranteed a permanent homeland reserved for them. At the end of the Rogue River Wars in 1856, these tribes and many other tribes from Western Oregon were removed to the Siletz Reservation and the Grand Ronde Reservation. Today, the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde Community of Oregon and the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians are living descendants of the Takilma, Shasta, and Latgawa peoples of this area. I encourage you to learn about the land you reside on and to join us in advocating for the inherent sovereignty of Indigenous people.
Okay, and now I'm going to go back to screen share because we have a lot of photos to share with you today. Let's see. I haven't done this in a while. Thanks everybody for being patient with me. Okay, there we go.
So I just returned last week, actually, from the memorial at Washington, D.C. And this is the National Native Americans Veterans Memorial in Washington. And the fire that you see burning in the center of the hoop is reflective of the fire of the peoples and the nations, the separate nations. And that fire is a combining and collective gathering point for peoples, for warmth, for food, and for community. The circle in the center represents the drum and the heartbeat of all beings, and particularly the heartbeat of Mother Earth and our heartbeats that combine with hers. And this is a beautiful location right in front of the Museum of the Native American on the Smithsonian Mall in Washington. And obviously this is a summer picture. Washington doesn't look quite this way right now, with the leaves having fallen. While we were there, was pretty amazing. And so this is the memorial as it exists. As you go around the memorial, there are the service pins or badges that are commemorative of each of the armed forces of the United States, and all veterans, male and female, that have served our country. And we're going to watch just a couple of minutes of a short video that addresses that perspective and why we serve. This is about a half-hour video. We're going to watch about 2 minutes of it. So please enjoy. And that is the Museum of the American Indian right there.
If we can get it to play.
Okay.
There we go.
Here we-
Is it sharing? Good, thank you. We practiced this and it worked great. So let's see if it'll do it for us now.
The donut of doom blows in like Caliban.
Oh, somebody else said that. I was like, that's not the video I selected.
No.
Huh. Well,
Why is it buffering?
it is. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. I'm going to turn off our video and see if that helps. There we go.
Here we go.
Welcome to this sacred place.
Veterans, please come forward.
Why did I choose to serve? I wanted to do the right thing.
I chose to serve to follow in my dad's footsteps.
We grew up poor, we had no money.
I had the opportunity to choose to serve. Not everyone had that choice.
We have a long history of Native veterans, more than any other people.
We are the First Nation, and we will defend our land, no matter what.
You look at the red stripes on that flag that America so boldly flies. Those high axioms they call equal justice and treaties. Our ancestors fought for that standard of law. They fought for that standard of belief.
We're used to serving our tribe, serving our people. We want to be recognized, not just as somebody who serves, but who we are.
In my language, the people are known as the Anishinaabe Beg. That's all of us who speak the Algonquin language and belong to the Anishinaabe Nation. When we speak of our warriors, our veterans, from time immemorial, we've always had warrior societies, and those veterans have always been recognized for their service and commitment to their community, their tribes, their clans, and the societies to which they have belonged. In our language, the term for warrior is agijita, and that means that you stand up for your people and that you stand up for the Mother Earth, because our creation stories across the nation and through Canada, Mexico, Central America, South America, their creation stories amongst themselves all demonstrate a commitment that the Creator made to the Mother Earth to provide caretakers and stewards for her life and for all those relations that would live above, upon, and within her. So we don't just defend the human quotient, we defend all things that live. The red-tailed hawk feather that is pictured here is emblematic and representative of our respect for this particular bird. The red-tailed hawk for many of the tribes is seen as a protector bird that will go out against much larger forces like bald eagles and gold eagles, and will drive them from the area of their nest, of their home, through ferocious attacks. They are considered to be a very powerful spiritual being, and that's why these feathers are decorated with quill work. You'll notice that this work, the quill work that's done on this feather, runs on the center part of the shaft of the feather, and the outer featherings or outward part of the feather are undisturbed. This takes tremendous skill and time in order to be able to do this, and this is a beautiful representation of the protector bird, the red-tailed hawk, very prominent in the legends and stories of the Tequilma people and the creation of the Table Rocks during an encounter between the evil Goya or medicine men and the red-tailed hawk on behalf of the Creator. This is a statue just outside the Museum of the American Indian that stands at the gateway to the Native Veterans Memorial. And this is significant of a buffalo dancer, a buffalo warrior of the, I believe this is a representation of the Hopi peoples. And you'll notice the medicine pouch at the waist and also on the chest of the warrior.
I just realized something. I'm going to pause you for a moment.
Okay.
We're going to change our audio feed.
People have to be able to.
Oh, hey, there you are. Hey.
Can't hear him at all anymore.
No, he's muted.
David, you're muted.
Working on it.
Yeah, you know what? I just realized that I wanted him to be speaking, but I have the wrong speaker on. So we're just going to change places here. Go ahead and sit here. Thanks everybody for your patience. I thought I was doing so great with the sound, but then I realized he wasn't popping up as the speaker. So we're going to make it happen. Wrong mouse. I have 2 mouses, 3 screens. There we go. Can everybody see David?
Can you see me?
Yes, but your name is Sally.
Oh, I can change that. Okay, David, I apologize for the interruption, and everybody proceed. Okay, David, go ahead.
Okay, so we could move on to the next slide.
Okay, I know how to do that.
So on the mall, the area of Washington Monument and the surrounding areas are the memorials to the different armed conflicts that the United States has been in. I didn't get a picture of the World War I memorial as it was undergoing some restoration, but this picture is of the World War II memorial adjacent to, of course, the Washington Monument. And the conflicts are laid out in a circular manner around the reflecting pond in this part of the mall. And you follow it around and you end up at the other end opposite of the Washington Monument, of course, at the Lincoln Memorial. And so we walked this journey to pay our respects to the veterans of all those armed conflicts. Actually, American Indians began serving in the United States military less than a year and a half after Wounded Knee. They also served in the Spanish-American War, and from that time to the current day, American Indians have the highest rate of service of any racial group in the United States by per capita count, which is a real honor for us as we make up between 1 and 1.5% of the total population of the nation. Now, this is the World War II memorial. This is a picture of the Vietnam Memorial, the wall, and there's a name that's centered there, Dennis E. Monfils. That was my sister-in-law's dear friend in high school, and she had never been able to find where he was located on the wall. And my brother and I spent about 20 minutes pouring through the books of that give the names and the placement of the names on the wall. And so it was my honor to be able to find his name for her. I found out something that on many of the sections of the wall, the names that are on a particular section of the wall, many of them died in the same battle. And Dennis was accompanied by very many of our young people that were in military service at that time in Vietnam, and would have been 1968, in which he passed away in service to the nation. This is the first treaty of 1861 that established a politically distinct tribe with the citizen Potawatomi Nation, recognized our sovereignty, recognized us as a political entity, but also recognized us as human beings and put us on our way to receiving federal citizenship and federal rights to vote and to bring lawsuit against non-Indian people. At that point, we were not able to, and for the rest of Native America, that didn't happen until 1928. This is the Korean Memorial. And if you've never been to the Korean War Memorial, I urge you to go see it and pay your respects. You will be absolutely amazed at what happens when you enter this sacred area. This memorial has a very distinct energy about it, and it's very powerful in its impact. The eyes of the statues are about maybe 4 to 6 inches taller than life size. And the eyes of each of the squad that's laid out as they would be moving through enemy territory follow you as you circle the memorial. You couldn't get in on this squad from any direction because there's a set of eyes looking in every direction for their security and their safety and their movement to engage the enemy. This is the Korean Veterans Memorial. And there is a statue of an American Indian in the center. The one that's crouching on the extreme right of the picture is of a Native American member of the Marines. This is the Korean memorial to nurses and the nursing corps that have cared for our warriors and our veterans during all conflicts of our nation and of our people, and our gratitude to them, service men and women that served. Not all who were nurses were female, and not all who fought in combat were male. This is the Great Seal of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation. We're known as the Nijnabeg Bodawadme people, which translates to mean people of the place of the fire, keepers of the sacred fire. And this is our logo, and it depicts a sacred pipe or pogagan and a war club, Pauschutz. The pipe of peace overlays the war club, because our fire that we kept in that fire that is symbolized there was a peacekeeping fire to have resolution to conflicts in and amongst our intertribal communities. This is the crowd. The only day in 7 days that we were there in Washington that it was cloudy and rained. And the veterans, the old veterans said, well, most of the time weather wasn't real favorable to us when we were in war. So this is nothing. At least we have umbrellas. There we had nothing.
Remember what you said about the ancestors weeping?
They also told us that day, they shared with us, some of the elders there shared with us that they believed that it was the spirit of our ancestors that accompany us, particularly as related to veterans. We carry the spirit of our people when we go into combat, as they pray for us and watch over us. And that this was the spirit of our ancestors weeping for those that had been lost in the conflicts to protect our country, still to this very day. This gentleman was a member of the United States Marine Corps. He was in Korea during the war, and he fought at the Chosin Reservoir battle, which was a particularly horrible conflict, and many members of the United States Marines died there. The survivors were very few. They had called themselves the Chosin Few, or Chosen Few, because of the Chosin Reservoir. I introduced myself to him when I saw his hat and told him that I was from the West Coast and that I'm a citizen Potawatomi, Miami, and Kickapoo. This gentleman was Hopi. And I told him that our Confederated Tribes of Siletz at their annual powwow every year in August, that the arena director, their whipman for their tribe, had been a gentleman named Gilbert Towner, who was highly decorated from the Battle of the Chosin Reservoir. And every year, he and the Siletz tribe brought the surviving members of the Chosin Few to the celebration at Siletz. And this gentleman said that he had been there a couple of different times, and that he felt when he first saw me that he might have recognized me from that time. It was really a great honor to meet him and to realize what he has gone through and survived was really quite remarkable. This is myself and some of my fellow Potawatomis. That are three of them, the gentleman on my right and the two on the outside of my left are regional representatives for the tribe across the nation. The young man to my immediate left is the one who now carries the Eagle staff for the Pacific Northwest region. His name is Robert White. These are also some more of my Potawatomi relatives. We're inside the Museum of the American Indian. There was quite a large contingent of us when we all got together for the processional, and we marched around a square of the Smithsonian Mall. There were 17,000 American Indian veterans that were registered to participate in the processional. That's not counting the non-veteran Native people and families that were there. And the supportive crowd that was there was beautiful. The crowd was estimated at between 1,800 and 21,000, 18,000 to 21,000 people on that day of Veterans Day, Friday, November the 11th. This is us posing in front of the Capitol building. You notice that there's nothing in between the Native American Veterans Memorial and the Capitol building across the way there. That's so that when they come out the door, the first thing they see is us, which we find that rather gratifying. And we see them as well. And these are my brothers from the Ojibwe and Oneida Nation. And the young man on the far right is my godson, the son of the man in the black t-shirt. Was very pleased and honored to be there in Washington with them. This was a one of a kind moment for us and was American Indian history in the making that we were there to participate in. 3 out of the 4 are veterans. These folks again are my Potawatomi relatives, and the people that are in back of us are, we were lined up by tribal nation. So there was a long line of people behind us and in front of us as well. There was a lot of people there that day. It was beautiful. Again, this family, tribal members. And this is one of the oldest Indian motorcycles in the nation. And it is on permanent display at the Museum of the American Indian in Washington. And it's one of the first exhibits that you see as you walk in the door. First Indians are having their first Indian motorcycle. So that was our representation of the trip, and that we have an interest in all the things that are associated with us and to us and as American Indian people. This is Native American Heritage Month, and it's taken us a long time for this to come about, this recognition of us as sovereign nations, as people who serve and are in service to our country, even to the giving of one's life. Our feeling about the warrior piece of our world is that the warrior comes when danger threatens, when that service is required. And amongst the Anishinaabe, each village had a war pole. And if they were asked to go against an enemy or to be defending the home or the community, each warrior was asked their willingness to participate and to serve. And if they felt that their medicine was strong and that the cause was just, they would walk through the camp in the village and would strike the war pole in front of full view of the community. If they didn't feel that it was just, or they didn't feel that their medicine was good, that they might die in the coming conflict, then they just did not strike the pole. And there were no retributions. There was no accusations of any form around that. It was each person's decision about whether they wanted to risk their life in that particular circumstance or event. So we weren't drafted. We weren't ordered. It was by our participation. In the Vietnam War, there were 80,000 American Indians that served in Vietnam, in the Vietnam era. Out of that 80,000, 94% were volunteers. This was during the time of the draft. And we, again, had the highest rate of service of any racial group in the nation during that time. I was really honored to be able to be there. There were large numbers of clergy representatives that were there, and they came to pay their respects to the Native veterans and families and peoples that had been part of their congregation and that they knew to be part of their specific faiths. And they came to support us. They marched in line with us. They stood and had coffee and donuts in the rain with us. They offered prayers up for us, and they all spoke about how honored they were to be there and to be included and have been invited and participate in this recognition. As you can tell, it was very emotional for me. It was very emotional for a great many of us. And we found that my brothers and my godson and I were in town for 7 days, with Friday being right in the middle. And we toured a lot of the exhibits, which was difficult for us because 3 of the 4 of us are physically disabled in our legs and feet. But we did a lot of walking because it was something that we needed to do and something that we had set our minds on doing. And our families go way, way, way back in the tribes of the Great Lakes, and our connection right up to this very day amongst the different tribes is very strong in our family. We found that most people either would not look at us, or if they did look at us, they looked at us with fear and distrust. Many of them came and spoke to us and said, "You guys are American Indians. Are you natives? Wow, you guys are Indians." And it was pretty awesome, but at the same time, it was rather sad that they had never seen an Indian person in their life. They'd never seen any representation of American Indian people in our own country. It was rather startling. When we got to the museum and to the memorial dedication, everybody was looking at each other. The Indians just don't operate that way. We were looking at each other, people were crying, they were hugging. There was tremendous amounts of laughter and fun poking at each other. They tell us that if you're getting teased by the Indian people and you're walking away with a whole body full of arrows from teasing and loving and playing, that means you're in. If you're not in, you don't get that. You don't get that kind of teasing and inclusion. The other people that recognized us and spoke to us a number of times at length were African-American people. And nearly every one of them would come up to us and shake our hands and hug us and either burst into tears or they would pull themselves up very tall and tell us what they'd done to you was wrong. What they'd done to you was wrong, to your people. They did great many wrongs to us, but what they did to you was even worse in your own country. And you lived through a genocide. You lived through repression. You lived through all the efforts to eliminate you from your own land and your own country, and you survived. And we respect that survivability in you, that strength to survive that lives within you. And we're really proud to see you here. And many of them also made the same things. That's not me jumping around.
I'm trying to get it to work.
That's the technology jumping around. I was looking like, hey, my pony came through.
How's that?
Feeling like I was in a canoe on Lake Superior or something there. Hey. That's much better, shall I think. I want to thank those folks here publicly that came forward and shook our hands and expressed their feeling about us and what we as a people had lived through. It recognizes your humanity. The hotel that we stayed in was right on Embassy Row, and a pretty snazzy place. We saved long and hard and gathered all of our bottles and cans to save for this trip. And so we were staying in a pretty good spot because it was close to the metro where we could get around pretty easily. And we had concerns about how far we'd have to walk and stuff. Once you got to where you were going, then the walking started. That's a big place. boy, there's a lot of people there. There's so much to see. We could have stayed there easily for a month or more and never seen in nearly all of it. Some of the museums are enormous. The Museum of Natural History is incredible. I urge you, if you ever go to Washington, to see the Native American Museum. Lots of the early Smithsonian pieces that they had and the presentation of them have now moved to the NAMI and are displayed in a very much of a traditional Native way. And they have tremendous archival material, and research is encouraged at all of those places. So that was my trip to Washington. My feelings about Native American Heritage Month are very good. I see lots of representation here locally through SOU and through the Siletz tribe, the Klamath tribes, and the Grand Ronde tribes in making mention of this time in this area. And it makes me doubly proud to be an American Indian and an Oregonian. I appreciate living here. I appreciate the green. I appreciate the clean air. I appreciate the water, the land, the people. And I just am real glad to be from here and to be a third generation Oregonian and about probably somewhere around 720th generation American Indian. That's by current anthropological data. Our stories go back to the beginning time. And so thank you for listening. And I would like to ask if there are any questions or anything that I might add or anything that you would care to add or to say.
Oh, look, David, somebody from the audience asked a question. Explain the beads you're wearing, please. I did it.
Okay. This is a beaded piece that was presented to me by a man named Lynn Sconchen from the Klamath tribes. He was a member of the Modoc, Klamath and Yahuskan peoples, primarily of Modoc descent. He was a direct lineal descendant of Sconchen John, of Captain Jack's band, of the Modoc people who inhabited the Lava Beds National Monument in Northern California. And it's an American flag and says U.S. Air Force on it. And I served from 1969 to 1972. I was trained as a combat engineer. I served in Prime Beef and Red Horse Ready teams. The Red Horse teams were combat engineers. The Prime Beef teams were deployment within a half an hour to any natural disaster anywhere in the world. And I'm very proud of my time and my service. The choker is brand new. It reflects my dance colors and the colors, the primary colors of my people, the red and black. It also has beadwork on it that represent the water, because I have been charged by Grandmother Agnes Baker Pilgrim to speak for the water. So when I put this choker on, it puts the water right next to my voice, and I never forget to speak using my big voice. She wanted me to speak for the water. So thank you for the questions. Nobody else? I used to look out at my students and they'd kind of have this blank look on their face like, wow, what did he just say? I know there's a lot of stuff that I just said. How does it impact you? What do you think about it?
Carrie, go ahead and unmute yourself, please.
Hi, thanks for speaking with us today. Have you been to the monument down in Ashland? Do you know about the events down there?
Yes, I have.
Is there anything that's open for community participation so we can get more cultural involvement?
You know, I don't know how it is now. That was a while back that I was there. I would urge people to contact Dr. Brooke Colley at Southern Oregon University. She's the current chair and full professor in Native American Studies at SOU, and she would be able to answer that question very directly for you. I've been retired from there for about 6 years. Somebody's talking over here. Is that Jenny?
Oh, she's talking to somebody she's tutoring,
Oh,
I
okay.
think. Yep.
No questions?
Sessa. Are you on?
David,
There you are.
are you writing books? Your memoirs, any nonfiction books? Are you writing anything?
Yes, I am. I'm currently in the process with Dr. Colley is doing an oral history project with me. And I'm working with some folks that were retired from the University of Alaska Fairbanks, which is my alma mater for my master's degree. And we're doing some recordings. COVID stopped us. And I'm now just ready to get back into doing that. I'm going to be recording some of the stories and things that I have been blessed to have participated in and to have been at. I'm putting some of those things down on a CD that will accompany the book. The preliminary title of the book is The Further Adventures of the Red Bottom Travelers. And because Indians are on the go all the time. Seems like we spend a lot of time on the road. We're traveling people. And so the book will have more of the stories, but people will be able to read the stories and be able to, having listened to the CD, be able to put my voice to the stories that are coming out. It's also going to be uncorrected linguistics and language. I'm not writing to the standard for most books. They want me to record and write the stories in the way that I talk. And I appreciate that because I am an oral tradition person and I come from that heritage and that background. And I did my 21 years of teaching in that venue. Well, that was a real honor that they had decided to help me do that. We're a ways off from that. We've got 10 stories that are all lined out, and I've done the preliminary stories with the author and the writer, and she's fleshing those out a little bit, and then I'll fill them in. So we're coming pretty close to having about 12 stories finished.
That's awesome, because we need to preserve you for future generations, because we're honored and blessed to be able to listen to you share those stories with us today and in previous events and previous other venues. So I'm glad you're getting captured.
Thank you.
So I'm going to ask a question. If they're unedited, does that mean like the thing with the crows, the flock of crows is in there? Go ahead.
Yes, the flock of crows is in there. The old Indian eyes. What is that noise? Oh, I think that's a bunch of crows.
I'm going to see.
Well, maybe it's ducks or something. I don't know what it is.
I'm going to see if I can find it and we'll share it. Keep going.
So Sally said, I think those are geese. I said, oh, I don't think so. I think, guess what? It was geese. So Sally had the eyes that day.
Oh, here it is. I'm going to see if I can, I'm going to see. Keep going. Carrie.
So I kind of latched on to when you said you speak for the water, and it reminded me that I had heard about a movement with the Rogue River Indigenous peoples and the preservation of the ecology because they're having trouble with some of their traditional food sources.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any, have you heard what's happening with that lately? Because the last time I heard anything was a good 6 months ago, I think.
Yes, that is in the development stages and planning. That is a number of the family members of Grandma Aggie's family, because the Rogue River was so significant to the Takelma people. The family has decided to become active in its preservation. They were active. Grandma was very active in the removal of the dams on the Rogue at Gold Ray and at Savage Rapids. And the areas that they're talking about are areas that have been recently burned as part of it, because the basket making materials have to be burned every so often because the stalks of the different grasses and ferns get hard, and then they're not pliable enough to make baskets out of them. So when they're burned, that's why they did, another reason that they did cool burnings was to keep the ladder fuels down, but also to have the some of the foods and the medicines and the basket making materials burned off about every 5 years so that they would produce new shoots. And it would also, after the cool burning, would bring the game for all of the tender young grasses and things that were coming back to take care of the earth after she had been burned. And so that's part of their legacy and of their history. And I think one of the young people who's really, really involved in this and going to become more involved once she has settled into her current position just a little bit. She's the current chair of the Cultural and Heritage Committee for the Tribal Council of the Confederated Tribes of Siletz. Her name is Chantel Relatos, and she's Grandma Aggie's granddaughter, actually great granddaughter. And she's a very, very knowledgeable person. And it will begin to grow more in relationship and partnership with the Southern Oregon Indian Center and with the Red Earth descendants that are based in Ashland, Talent area. We're also working with the Southern Oregon Land Conservancy in those regards, and both the Forest Service and the BLM, as the tribe has memorandums of understanding and agreement with those agencies. Tom Barry, I saw your hand up just a little earlier.
Yeah, and actually, my first question was answered by you by the question that was already asked. But and I sent it. I don't know if Sally saw it. I did send it in the chat. If you could put in the chat the name of the professor who is now the director at Southern Oregon University. If you could put that in the chat, so
He should be in the chat. I'll do it again.
Okay, maybe I just didn't have a chance to check that, but I just wanted to. I'm bad at remembering names until I get a chance to write them down on a scrap of paper and then lose them again later. But I thought if it was in the chat, that would help. So
Yes, Brooke Colley is her name.
Thank you.
Colley, Brooke, B-R-O-O-K. Brooke Colley, Dr. Brooke Colley. If you go to SOU's website and pull up Native American Studies, her name pops up as the chair.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ernestine?
Yes. David, thank you for being here with us. When you talked about being in Washington and people would come up to you and kind of say, "Oh, you're Native, you're Indian," how does that make you feel? Because there's a big
made us feel awesome.
To erase the history.
It made us feel awesome. It was very welcome, and it created an instantaneous friendship and companionship. It just happened so fast. I was so amazed with how many people. There were at least 4 people that when we started talking, all 4 of them were Black people. We started talking. All 4 of us in those 4 incidents, we all gravitated over to this film called Rumble. I don't know how many of you may have seen it, but it's the history of rock and roll and the Native American influence on the history of rock and roll. And we went into talking about the history of rock and roll and the blues and how part of that had come about in Charleston, the biggest slave market in the world, and the Indians were there first, and then the Blacks came, and then everybody was there, and pretty soon they were making music out of their shared reality of what was happening. And I was so deeply touched by the empathy that the people had for us as American Indians, having gone through what they went through, and having that sense of understanding that as bad as it was for them, there was another people that it was as bad for, and in some cases, perhaps even worse. I don't know how it gets much worse, but it was a healing. It was awesome. I just loved it. I didn't feel like we were invisible. When people wouldn't look at us, wouldn't acknowledge us when we'd hold the door or do the things that we were raised to do, to be courteous and polite, and no acknowledgement that we were even there. Makes you feel pretty isolated. And with the folks that came up to us, that went immediately away. And it wasn't all Black people. That was all races of people, but it was predominantly the Black people. And it's enough so that it struck us. They weren't afraid of us. The Black people weren't afraid of us. The other people, if we'd have started into a war song, a war dance, they would have dropped their teeth right on the sidewalk and been gone. There would have been accidents on the street. you could just, it was a palpable thing. They were afraid of us, and that was heartbreaking. That's from Hollywood. That's the ignorant savage, the bestial savage, the non-human indoctrination that was done on purpose to make us the enemy, so that it was all right to treat us however they wanted to because we were the enemy. And that didn't happen in those specific populations. It was awesome. Thank you for asking that.
You're welcome. Actually, they showed Rumble at Barnstormers maybe a week or so ago, and there was very good turnout. Yeah, it was great.
I watched it on the plane going over there.
Oh, okay.
Anybody else? Comments?
I found the
You
video.
might put,
Go ahead, Pat, sorry.
you might put if somebody knows where it is, you might put it on the chat or something, where to find it. Rumble.
Rumble. Okay, I don't know.
I'll see if
myself.
I can find out.
Sally's gonna do what she can to find out.
Thanks.
You can find it on PBS.
Oh, the website?
Yeah, you can go to, you know how they have all the stuff on demand, PBS.
Do you pay for on demand or, oh, you mean on the TV?
If you already have PBS, you shouldn't have to pay for on demand. Or you might try YouTube too, but I know it's on PBS for sure.
I'm seeing it on YouTube with a subscription. Basically, if you search Rumble, there's ways to watch it. You can purchase it on your various, ask Pat or Bob. Bob will have some sort of subscription for you, Pat, and then you can stream Rumble.
Thanks.
And you want to search for Rumble, the Indians who rock the world.
Yes.
So I might be looking at the wrong Rumble, but yes.
Oh, there was some good music.
Somebody pop that in the chat. I am inept at the moment, please. Thank you. Oh, it looks like Angelica did. Thank you. Thank you, Angela.
Okay, I believe Sally found the
Well, I did find it. However, I can't get it to play on this.
Oh.
So if anybody wants to see it some other time, just hit me up and I'll share it with you. My phone and my computer, it's too big of a file. So and then Kelly, if you want to run over here, you can just say, Sally, this is how you do it. I've got it connected with a USB cord and it's still saying, nope, I don't want to play it. It's not being nice. Saying can't play, please try again.
Oh, the joys of technology.
But it's fun. It's kind of funny because I was like, yeah, no, those are not ducks. Those are not crows. And it took you a minute, didn't it, my wise friend?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I ask a quick question of the people that I can see? Can you take this off, Sally?
Wrong mouse, sorry. There we go.
Okay. From the people that are here that I can see, how many of you have veterans in your family? Would you raise your hand? How many of you are veterans yourself? Anybody? Let's see. I don't see any. Well, I'd like to thank your family.
Ernestine's hand is up and Sarah's hand is up, but you might have a question. Let's see.
If your hand is up because you're a veteran, I just wanted to tell you from all of us to you, thank you for your service. That was a very, very common theme that we heard so often. Every place that we went that we were in association with the museum or with the memorial, it was just everywhere. And that's a wonderful feeling, particularly for those of us that were in the Vietnam era. We didn't get such a welcome home. I got egged in Medford when I came home in 1972. And that really was very painful. Like I said, I'm a third generation Oregonian. I'm directly related to the territorial governor, Oswald West, who saved the beaches for us and wouldn't allow the highways to be built on the beaches. He's a great uncle, and on my dad's side. And it really, it got healed up a lot on this trip. because people came and shook our hands and told us thank you for our service. I sang 2 songs, one at the Korean Memorial and one at the Vietnam Memorial. The one at the Korean Memorial is a Southern style warriors song, and the one at the Vietnam Memorial is a prayer song. It's a good heart song to lift up the hearts of the people, because I was seeing a lot of tears there. We were just 2 days after Veterans Day that we went to the wall, and the commemoratives, the flowers, the poems, the books that were open to specific pages. You could see where people had taken pencils and rubbed over the name of their loved one to take home, and the date in which they were killed. It was very moving, and I didn't care who was watching. I didn't ask anybody for permission. I just did it, and it felt wonderful, and I would do it again. If I live long enough to ever be able to make another trip back to Washington, I'd do it again. I'm really thankful to have been able to go on this journey, and to be able to do it with my brothers. As we're getting up in age, it becomes more difficult for us to travel, and particularly flying has gotten in the Minneapolis-St. Paul Twin Cities airport. You can't buy a hot dog with a $1 bill. You've got to do one of them little things over there on your phone and punch it in. And then you got to do this and that other thing and stuff to get a hot dog, a slice of pizza. We depend too much on this technology. One of my old relatives in Alaska, Chief Howard Luke, from the ancient village of Chinook, just outside of Fairbanks. He used to say, "Oh, David, I just worry for my younger generation." I said, "Why is that, Howard?" He said, they just don't know nothing. He said, all they do is they look on that phone, that cell phone thing. This is back in the 80s that I'm talking about, the late 80s. So it was just really coming out, but he was adamant about the technology. He said they pay too much attention to that TV. They pay too much attention to that new phone thing. And he said, they don't listen about nature. And he said, nah, I just tell them all the time. My young people, I worry for you in the future. I'm going to tell you one thing. You better remember how to trap a rabbit. When the electricity goes off, plane don't come, train don't come, boat don't come. You better remember how to trap a rabbit. I think that was grand wisdom. If you look into that at depth of what he was saying, don't depend on this technology too much. The people talked to us about the reason that they put the fire in there, in our circle of life, and the medicine wheel that it represents. All beings are represented in the medicine wheel, all our relations. And the reason that they put that fire in the middle is because the fire is older than all of us. The fire within is older than all of us and of our relations. The fire was first, and then the firmament, and then the water, and the fire retained inside. And if she comes with fire to purify her in the time of the prophecy of the 7th fire, and the prayers for the lighting of the 8th fire, which we believe has just happened, signifies a coming of time of peace and harmony and tranquility. And we pray for that to be so amongst all beings and amongst all people. It didn't matter for those Native veterans whether you were red, yellow, black, or white. They all spoke to the fact that bullets and bombs don't know the color of the skin. And so there is a family of human beings, red, yellow, black, and white, that we have to help take care of in relationship to the families of everything else that lives and takes life, nourishment, and sustenance from the Mother Earth by the grace of the great being, the great mystery. It's been my pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you for listening. I appreciate the time that I've had to be able to share these things. They mean a great deal to me, and I really appreciate Sally and her hard work in putting these together. And I hope that that relationship and friendship can continue into the future. That we'll be able to come again together another time, and that I can come and listen to these courageous conversations that are being led by you and by other members of our community. And together we make a formidable force for good and balance and inclusion in our community. So, thank you very much, my relatives.
Thank you.
And thank you for the pass on the technology. As I was going to say, I did want to share very quickly, if I grab the right mouse, that we are having in person. We're going to be back to in person in January for the celebration for Dr. Martin Luther King. That'll be 6 p.m. downtown Grants Pass at the United Methodist Church. And we will be also having a hybrid. So if you're not able to make it in person, we will have it video as well. So thank you, everyone. And thank you, especially David. Here, we'll get in the same screen together.
All right.
Have a great afternoon all.